March 10, 2007, during a fierce El Clasico match at Camp Nou, the world of football as everyone knew it back then would never be the same again. Ruud van Nistelrooy would open the match with a quick goal in the 4th minute, and immediately it looked like the Catalan fans were going to be in for a very long night. However, just a few minutes later would come a savior. Not their world-class striker Samuel Eto'o, Ballon d'Or runner-up Deco, or Ballon d'Or winner Ronaldinho. Instead, it would be their youngest player on the pitch, a teenage Lionel Messi, to score Barca's first goal. Even when Van Nistelrooy answered back immediately to put Madrid back up 2-1, Lionel Messi refused to let Madrid pull away as he scored yet another equalizing goal. But as the match was coming to an end and Sergio Ramos scored a 3rd goal for Madrid, Camp Nou was completely silenced and all hope was lost. Until in the 90th minute, as Lionel Messi would come to the rescue and pull off a last-moment equalizer to save the night from ruin, scoring the very first hat-trick in his career and becoming the first player to score a hat-trick against Real Madrid in over a decade. One of the greatest El Clasico performances and comebacks in club football up to date had just been performed by a teenager. However, you could say that this wasn't all that much of a surprise, because even as young as he was, many who watched Messi figured that something like this was only a matter of time. Because he wasn't just the best teenager in the world. As a teenager, he was already one of the best footballers in the world. And everyone who experienced his meteoric rise would be left nothing short of terrified. Just like how today's world is always trying to constantly find the next Messi, next Ronaldo, or next Neymar. When Messi was coming up, the world had always been looking for the next Diego Maradona. But it might have been no other than Ronaldinho himself that always knew Lionel Messi wasn't just going to be the next Maradona. He would eventually surpass him. And perhaps there's no better story explaining this than one told by the late great Kobe Bryant.
Mucho tiempo fa, Barcelona venía a Los Angeles. Niño fue un amigo mío. Estaba allí hablando con Ronaldinho. Ronaldinho me dice, Kobe, mira, te voy a presentar el juego que va a ser el mejor juego de todos los tiempos. ¿Tú qué? Tú eres el mejor jugador. Él me dice, no. Esto aquí va a ser mejor. Fui Lionel Messi, tenía solamente 17 años. Chiquito.
But for some reason, many people seem to think that Messi's ability is all a result of natural talent. But the truth is, Messi has put countless hours training and drilling since he was a child. Even Messi wouldn't be where he is today without it. He didn't just become that good without putting in the work. And if you've ever thought about seriously improving your game instead of just dreaming about it, that's where today's sponsor, F-Pro, comes in. F-Pro is the ultimate football training ecosystem, empowering footballers, especially younger kids, with high-performance training tools they can use anytime and anywhere. F-Pro turns your living room, garage, and even your backyard into your own personal academy. Firstly is F-Pro's Ball Mastering Mat, a foldable mat with numbered zones that helps players master control, footwork, and coordination. But what makes it even more powerful is how it connects to the F-Pro app. And the F-Pro app gives you access to over 100 guided drills, daily challenges, and training videos, all designed by elite coaches and former professionals. Plus, the app even lets you track your progress through their leaderboards, making training more fun, interactive, and competitive. So whether you're just starting out or chasing the next level, F-Pro helps you train harder, smarter, and gives you structured development you can actually see and track, anytime and anywhere. So if guys at the very highest level like Messi still continue to put in work today, if you ever want to improve, don't make the mistake of thinking you don't have to. Because like they say, hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. So if you want to start training like a pro at home and improve your touch, dribbling, and overall game, click the link in the description and go to usa.fpro.com/Raymar and use my promo code Raymar for 20% off your F-Pro order and start training like a pro today. Thanks to F-Pro for sponsoring this video. Because at 17 years old, while maybe for outsiders, Messi was just some unknown kid, for the Barca players who watched him rise through La Masia, he was already secretly a star and a nightmare to defend. The senior players were so confident in him that they would beg then-manager Frank Rijkaard to move him up from Barcelona B to the men's team. And as young as he was, Rijkaard slowly started testing him in bigger and bigger matches. And from the moment he first stepped onto the pitch as a men's team player, Messi was already humiliating veterans with over a decade of experience. And Xavi said it best: he would embarrass everyone. It was not normal, because truly there was nothing normal about a 17-year-old becoming the youngest scorer in Barcelona history. But that's the thing, people weren't just watching Messi and thinking he's going to be great. They were watching him and wondering, how is he already this good? Looking at his number of goals and assists in his first full season with Barca, they weren't really anything all too insane. Don't get me wrong, 13 goal contributions in 25 matches is very good for an 18-year-old. But it wasn't about his production. It was about what he was doing on the pitch. The world had not seen that kind of dribbler since Diego Maradona. Someone running at full speed and able to change directions instantly, all while looking like the ball was glued to his feet. A youngster who was making professionals look like Sunday League players. And for the defenders facing Messi for the first time, they quite literally had no idea what to do. After all, that generation had never seen anyone move like that around the pitch before. Sure, maybe the older players were used to the dribbling of an R9, a Zidane, a Ronaldinho, or a Thierry Henry. However, they didn't move like that. They didn't move like him. Very quickly, defenders, managers, and the rest of the footballing elite understood very quickly Messi wasn't just a gifted talent, he was an anomaly. And some realized this just after their very first meeting with Messi. Fabio Capello, the then coach of Juventus, watched Messi as a substitute in 2005, and he walked up to Frank Rijkaard after the match and told him bluntly, "Give him to me for 1 year, just 1 year." This is when Messi was just 17 years old, and of course Frank Rijkaard laughed it off. There was no way in hell that was happening. Not because he was dribbling past defenders like they weren't even there. Not because he had the kind of balance and control that made top players look like amateurs. It was because of what Ronaldinho saw before everyone else. Messi wasn't just mimicking greatness. As early as a teenager, he was building his own version of it. In the 2006-2007 season, even though Messi was a teenager, very quickly defenders treated him like he wasn't one. Out of solutions, defenders did what they always did against the truly brilliant players: foul them as hard as they can. During a match against Real Zaragoza, Messi would break his metatarsal on his left foot. Surprisingly, this was one of the very few major injuries he received throughout his career. Incredible considering how a lot of ball-heavy players sustain a lot more injuries from over-aggressive defenders. Luckily, Messi would only be out for 3 months, but when he got back, the teenager would score 11 goals in 14 matches. But in 2007, I don't think there was any goal that would symbolize Messi's upcoming greatness than the one that he scored in the Copa del Rey final against Getafe. The moment when Messi, for the world, truly became terrifying. In the 28th minute, Messi picked up the ball from near the halfway line, sprinting past 5 defenders, then rounding the keeper, scoring from an angle that many players wouldn't even attempt. The resemblance was undeniable. It looked almost identical to the goal scored by Diego Maradona in the 1986 World Cup, recreated nearly step by step by a teenager. The very next day, he wasn't just getting comparisons to Maradona. From then on, people started suggesting that he might actually be better. Because in those 15 seconds, Messi made the world realize something haunting. He really was only still a teenager, and he was just getting started. But the wild thing about Messi's style of play was that even though the solution most of the time was to foul him, many defenders couldn't even do that, as that they couldn't catch him. And when they did, for his size and center of gravity, they would just bounce off him. By the end of the 2006-2007 season, many pundits had already considered Messi as the best teenager the sport had ever seen. Even Marco van Basten would say, there's no one like him, not at that age. Not even Diego. Even the man himself, Diego Maradona, publicly claimed, Messi is the one who's going to take my place in football, and he'll do it even better. And by the end of 2007, the 19-year-old Messi would finish 3rd in Ballon d'Or voting, right behind a 22-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo and a 25-year-old Ricardo Kaká. For most of the footballing world, a teenager was the 3rd best player on the planet. And even for quite the amount of fans, for them, a teenager was the best in the world. At 20 years old, Messi was already tearing up the Champions League, and one of his biggest statements came against Celtic in the round of 16. Over 2 legs, he would score twice and assist in another. Commentators began whispering the same phrase over and over again. He's absolutely world class. But the terrifying part was Messi was still barely playing 90-minute full matches. His body wasn't yet the machine it would become. He was still getting fatigued, getting a bit injured, and still growing. But even in those moments when he was off the pitch, the fear of what he could do was often enough to disrupt entire game plans. In those days, coaches weren't preparing for Ronaldinho anymore. They were preparing for Messi. By the age of 20, Messi would have a resume that most professional players wouldn't have even come close to reaching by the age of 30. It's hard to describe now because we're so used to Messi's name being synonymous with greatness. But back then, this was new. The world had never seen someone so young dominate the game with so much grace, so much speed, so much unpredictability on the ball. Spanish journalist Julian Balagüe once wrote, "There was a sense that whenever Messi touched the ball, something would happen. He carried that inevitability." But there was something else that separated him from the rest. Messi didn't look like a star. He didn't even act like one. He was reserved and quiet. But the second the whistle blew and the match started, he became different. By the time Messi turned 21 in the summer of 2008, there were no more comparisons. He wasn't the next Maradona. He wasn't Ronaldinho's heir. He was simply Messi. The blueprint had changed. The world had a new standard. By the end of 2008, while he would finish second in the Ballon d'Or voting, by the age of 25, he would later set the record for the most Ballon d'Ors in history with 4. Because before he ever became the best player in the world, Messi was already one of, if not the best teenager the world had ever seen. And for those who saw him back then, they didn't just believe he'd be great. They were terrified of how great he might actually become.